welcome to Everyday Board Games. I'm your host, Daniel.
And I'm your host, Daniel.
And today we're back with another review, this time Bullet Heart from Level 99 Games.
And we don't have a caveat on this one. I paid for this.
Yeah, well, we do have a caveat, actually. We do. The designer of this is a personal friend of ours and viewer of the podcast, so keep that in mind as we review it. We are incredibly biased, but...
Signed copy.
Right? Signed copy, so, I mean, that awesome person, awesome human being. So with that being said, though, we're going to try and take our bias as much out of it as we can, and we'll explain why we do it. And that's how we review our board games here. So the way our board game reviews work is quite simple. We have 5 criteria. We'll explain them as we get to them. And each one of those criteria, Daniel and I can offer 1 Daniel point, or a Daniel as we call it. And this would be ranked a total of out of 10 points possible from those criteria. And we'll explain why they do or don't meet the criteria as we get to that part. So, what is Bullet?
This is a game that's really kind of hard to describe because it's a puzzle game, but it's an action shooter game that is so fast paced that you're not really paying attention to too much going on around the table.
Yeah.
It's just, and it has it on the description right there. It's a shoot 'em up puzzle game. It's interesting because it's not anything I've ever seen before when it comes to board gaming aspect of it. It's bag drawing in a sense, and you are putting stuff into your bag, but it's usually because someone gave you bad stuff, and so it's a little twist and turn. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's so fast that you're not really understanding too much or paying attention too much. You're just like, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta figure this out, oh, I gotta do my power. But it's if you've ever played a video game that's kind of like a Bullet Storm or Bullet Hell, as Illuminous has put for us, it's the way it works is you're just shooting everything as it's coming at you, and that's the way this game is working. You're shooting everything as it's coming at you, and you're trying to make sure you're not the last one out, in a sense.
A shmup or a shoot 'em up game.
Yeah.
Right? That's another term for it. So let's get into this. We're going to start by flipping our coin of doom. That'll decide who talks first for each of our criteria. Here we go.
And this is me. So the first choice for us here is ease of play. And so that means the simplicity and the familiarity of the mechanism, the likelihood to get to the table either through the mechanism or the theme, or is it easy to learn, understand, and or teach. And so for me on this one, it's going to get 2 of the 3 sub-criteria for me, and will get a Daniel point. And the reason is the simplicity and the familiarity of the mechanism. Again, I had a hard time describing how this game actually works as we were describing the game. And so for that alone, I don't think it would get a point because it's not familiar for it. It is a very simple mechanism, but again, it's not a mechanism you've seen before.
Sure.
But the likelihood to get to the table, I can tell people that the shmup or It's a Bullet Storm, the anime theme on the cover can get a lot of people into it. And it's a very easy game to teach. It's very simple. And so what I like about it too, and when we get into our next category, is that you can play this competitively, solo, or co-op. And so for people who don't want to, deal with the competitive nature of these kind of games sometimes, playing it as a co-op is really cool too. And so the likelihood for that aspect, you don't want to play competitive? We can play co-op. That right there, and it's easy to teach one way or the other, however you're teaching it.
Right.
So ease of play, 1 Daniel for me.
All right. So ease of play for me, I agree with it. It's very easy to teach. I mean, you pull out a token, you put them in the column of the matching color, that many spaces down, skipping over any spaces that are already taken. That's it. That's the game. That's really it. I wish I was exaggerating. That's essentially all there is, right?
Yeah.
And knowing that you play it only in 3-minute rounds, it's a very simple idea. If anybody's played a video game like that, where it's one person and a bunch of bullets flying at you, and you're just trying to survive, that really does feel like that, right? And so the likelihood of getting to the table, I feel the theme is strong. I feel it is easy to understand and learn. Familiarity and I think the simplicity of the mechanism, like, yes, it's not so much familiar, but just the fact that you're literally just pull a token, put it in the column that many spaces down, I think that's simple enough where whether you're familiar with the mechanism enough, it doesn't matter. Like, you can understand that concept. It's effectively like a roll and move, right?
Yeah.
pull out a number. Oh, it's a 4. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Done.
And
That's
it's
all it
pushing
is,
other
right?
things down too.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a very strong. This gets a 3 out of 3 for me. This gets a Daniel point for ease of play. All right, on to our next criteria: replay value, and that'll be me. Length of time and scaling well is our first criteria. Does it scale well, and does it play short per the number of players? Minimum number of plays for the full experience, and this is: do you understand all of the content? Do you feel like you can play it time and time again and discover new information about it? Like, how many times can you play it before you see everything? And expandability: does it have existing expansions? Is it planning on having more that are confirmed by the designer? This is a huge bonus for me on all 3 of those. This plays 1 to 4 players very easily. It plays fast. It says 15 minutes on the box. That's not totally wrong.
3-minute rounds, so
3-minute rounds, right? You're playing about 5 rounds each. It so much that it even has a soundtrack that you can play as a timer, but you don't need that. It's a real time game. Yeah, it's a real time game, so keep that in mind. If you don't like real time game, you might not enjoy that, but that's not what we're talking about here. This already has a number of expansions, and in the box there's already like 8 characters or something like that. There's a lot of different heroines that you can play as, all with their own abilities. Plus, on top of that, the 3 game modes. And each of those heroines have like their own boss mode that you can play again. Holy crap, this game is replayable.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, like, there is more replay value in this 15-minute game than most games on this shelf behind it that, like...
just out of the box, not even with the expansions.
Out of the base game. Like, I mean, expansions just add crazy amounts more. Like, I can't tell you how much replay value this is. If you've seen anything of their versions of it, it's just, there's so much game in it. You can play this, like, on a full game night and play the different modes and the different heroines and get a different experience every time. Huge point for me. This is a Daniel.
And going into my replay value, I'm not going to belabor the point. It is getting a Daniel for me because the length of time is scaling well. It's a very quick game, whether you're playing 1 player or 4 players.
Yeah.
Just out of the box, the 3 different game modes, you can literally play all 3 game modes of this game: the solo play, the boss mode, the battler, or the 4 game modes if you want to, or the co-op, in one night in an hour.
Yep.
So before game night, I can play a solo of it, and you guys come over, we can play the boss battler, we can play the co-op, and do it in one night, in 1 hour. And it's fantastic.
Yep.
So it is getting the minimum number of plays for the full experience, because just that alone, plus the characters, plus their boss mode, plus also the expansions now. There's like 4, I think, so you got Bullet Heart, which is the base. You got Bullet Star, which is a full standalone expansion. You got Bullet Orange, which is 1 expansion. Then you got Pets that are coming out, and then there's another one that's coming along with Pets. There is a promo pack with a character. So yeah, it is very highly expandable. It's fantastic. So that is another Daniel for me.
All right. Now we're going on to Meaningful Choice. And Meaningful Choice talks about the impact on other players' strategies, the amount of depth that you have, depth of tactics, strategy, or skills, which this specifically will be about the tactics and skills part of it, and do arbitrary choices or analysis paralysis have a negative impact on your game. For me personally, while I know that there is not a crazy amount of interaction with the players, what the tokens that I destroy from my field go to the next player, that is a huge impact on their next turn. There is that player interactivity, although when you're actually playing in that, you're not directly impacting the other players, it's just what you affect them for the next round. But by slamming down piles of tokens in front of another player, that makes them very nervous and throws them off of their focus. This game is not only tactic based, like you have to fill in the now. Since it's a real-time puzzle, I feel like that's a huge benefit. The people who like real-time will hate this game. Like, I do believe that. But as somebody who is totally fine with real-time, I feel like if I spent every opportunity to sit there and look at the token and math out and piece out the statistics and all that stuff, that's taking away from the theme of the game, and that's why they put the timer in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
You don't do a shoot-'em-up like this to figure out how many bullets are in that gun, how many are in that. No, you don't figure that out. You're in the now. You're playing the action, and I feel that works really well. You can't make arbitrary choices because
you don't have the time
you
to.
don't have the time to. If you're, analysis paralysis will affect you, but that's again that you're gonna know if you like that or not. I have a good friend of mine who absolutely loathes this game because he doesn't like real time games. I I forgive that. I understand. I get that, but I love them, and I'm totally cool with that. And because of that alone, I think this is a massive, awesome production because of that. This gets a Daniel for me. And then on top of it, since each character works functionally different, they feel different too. Like the way I remove my tokens is a very different way than you remove yours. And the way ours might interact with each other because of that adds an interesting dynamic. Huge Daniel for me.
All right, so when it comes to meaningful choice, on my aspect of things, the impacting other player strategy, it's there. You're basically giving them there. So if you mess with a bunch of tokens and give them a lot of tokens, that's that. It gets a tick for me on that aspect, but it's not a massive thing. But when it comes down to the meaningful choice aspect, the depth of strategy, tactics, or skill, you mentioned it, the asymmetrical play of each of these characters changes how you play your game depending on the character you're playing at that moment. My character can trigger certain powers here if I do this, or my character can do this, which means I can wipe. If I play a certain character, I can wipe some of the bullets that you give me. I don't have to put them in my round and stuff like that. It has a lot of good stuff. And then when you're playing in the co-op mode, my special abilities really work well against a certain boss, or maybe I can help out my partner based on my abilities by doing this. That strategy alone, and it's so fast. And like when we go into the arbitrary choices or AP, they can make an impact on the game, but not as much because it's so quick. You have to, you gotta think quickly, or else you're gonna hurt yourself in the long run. So it's just more along the lines like, no, I can't think out this turn. This is gonna go here. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna give you these tokens. That's how you do it. It's getting a point for me. It is phenomenal. I really think this is, for such a quick real-time game, it's very, very meaningful on your choices.
Very good. Our next one is game immersion. And game immersion asks, is the game fun to lose, first and foremost? Secondly, are you having that table talk, role-playing? Do you feel like you're part of the game and its systems? And do you have those memorable moments where you all stand up and tell people about it? Wow. This is, if it wasn't clear before, I'm already quite impressed by this game. This, I feel, is its high point. I really do. So much to the point that the publisher, Level 99 Games, made an MP3 album of 3-minute songs that are in the style of shoot 'em up games that you play along with it that act as your timer. That is so incredibly immersive. That makes you feel like you're doing that. The bullets that are coming down, you're popping down, you're in the moment, you're hitting them around. And even if you're playing cooperatively, that you feel like you're part of that too. You have the tension building up and playing on this. It's fun to lose because then you sit back and you're like, oh, I was so close. I was so close. If only I did this, if I could do that, right? There's that interaction. There's that table talk. You're like, man, I'm, like you're being destroyed as you're dumping tokens on another player. Like, here, take those, and then you're just terrified as they're coming in. And then finally, those memorable moments. It's stand up like throughout the game. There's not a time that we haven't had a stand up moment. We've had that moment where we're like, come on, I got all the tokens all at the wrong time. Oh my gosh.
You gave me the wrong tokens and stuff like that.
It's like, stop giving me these. Stop giving me red bullets. I don't want those. Oh my goodness, right? And there's ways to mitigate it, but oh man, it's so intense. This, I think, is one of the most game immersive experiences I've ever had.
So this gives you a Daniel.
This gives me a Daniel on this one.
I don't disagree with you. This is a Daniel for me as well. It's very fun to lose. At that point, you're sitting there thinking, like, what could I have done better? Because I played very efficiently, and I still lost this game. The player interaction, you literally get mad of your neighbor for giving you all that stuff. It's like, stop it! Don't need these! Why are you giving me so many reds?
Right.
And then the memorable moments, those stand-up moments. It's nothing but a stand-up moment because you're literally standing at the table trying to figure it all out. And so, it is phenomenal. It's very immersive. It's a great game. So, it is a Daniel for me on that one.
All right, and our last one, and yes, Cither, you did show up at a good time. Our last one is art and production.
And this one is me, so I get to start it out. The art. it's subjective, but we try to take as much bias as out of we can out of it. The pieces and components, and the graphic design. I'm not gonna belabor the point. This is another Daniel for me. This is a 5 for 5. The art is phenomenal. It's really well done. The pieces and components are great. Just out of the base box alone, the tokens are really good. They're very straightforward. You can read them really well as you're going. You have the wooden pieces, and they are really well done. The graphic design, again, very easily readable. You know what they've done. It's very simple. It's like, if I do this, this, and this, I get to do that power. Very well done on that aspect. So yeah, it is a hands down a Daniel for me.
And for me, there's a slight, some of the tokens look slightly similar, but I remember when this was first in pre-production, the designer reached out to me, asked me about it. It's like, is there anything that seems weird about it? And I remember the icons being above the rows were slightly over the first column. I was like, well, when you put a token on that, you can't see the token. He's like, good point. And they moved it up. Like, who else could do that feedback so quickly? It was brilliant. They were still in that point where they could have done it. First off, I'm not the biggest fan of anime style art. I do like anime just fine. I don't like this. But what I like about these characters, they're not fan service.
Yeah.
They're not in skimpy outfits for no reason. No. These guys at level 99 and the whole company, they make characters that are awesome. They make characters that feel like heroes, that are there, like they're not here to make nerds like Saab or whatever. Like, that's not the point of it. They're here to kick butt and dodge bullets, and they do it. And every single one of them feels like their character. They have incredibly unique. They even have backstories. The graphic design is solid. The components, being double-sided, work really well. The optional wooden bits, I like those, but the tokens work just fine. It has bags enough for every player. And the art, especially if you like the anime style, it's amazing if you love the anime style. If you don't like it, it's still really good.
Yep.
This is also a Daniel for me.
And so history has been made since we started our reviews.
Yep.
Bullet is officially our first 10 out of 10 Daniels.
That's right.
And again, we are friends with the designer. We are friends with the company. However, we took our bias out of it based on our 5 criteria, and it hit a 10 out of 10.
That's right. With the caveat that you like real-time games.
Yes.
If you do not like real-time games, that will probably drop it to a 6. But with that being said, I've been your host, Daniel.
And I've been your host, Daniel.
And we want to thank you for listening to Everyday Board Games.
And remember, every day is a good day for board gaming.